Despite Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's decision to postpone the country's biggest trade union called the strike, and Israelis watch society close down around them on Monday.
Growing turmoil in Israel, fiery protests erupting in the streets tonight. This comes just hours after embattled Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Thousands of people are protesting on the streets. It is said to be the largest protest in Israel history. People are worried that the democracy in the country is being destroyed because their government tried to end the freedom of the judiciary and government tried to bring in amendments that would make the Supreme Court a government puppet. What is exactly happening in Israel? What is exactly happening in Israel? Come, let us understand it in this video. First, let us understand how democracy works. There are three main pillars of democracy: legislature, executive, and judiciary. Legislature makes the laws, executive implements the laws, judiciary checks the laws. To understand the current situation in Israel, this all began in 2018 while multiple snap elections were held following unsuccessful attempts to form a new government. The 2020 election was the first to have resulted in successful government coalition. The incumbent coalition, which led one-seat majority, collapsed in June 2022 after a member defected. In the snap legislative election that followed, the incumbent government, led by Yair Lapid, was defeated by a coalition of right-wing party led by former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who formed a new government and took office on 29 December 2022. On January 2023, newly appointed Justice Minister Yariv Lenin announced plans to reform Israel's judiciary and including limiting the power of Supreme Court and the government legal counselors and granting the government coalition a majority on the committee that appoints judges. Following announcement, several organizations, including Prime Minister Umedin Beshad, announced their intentions to organize protests in Tel Aviv on 7 January. The proposals allow a simple majority of 61 in 122 seat Knesset to override almost any Supreme Court rulings and allowed politicians to appoint most of these justices to the bench. The changes are spearheaded not by Prime Minister but his Likud colleague Yariv Lenin, the Justice Minister, and the religious Zionist M.K. Simcha Rothman, who chairs the Knesset's Law and Justice Committee. Both men have a long-standing hatred of Israel's Supreme Court, which they see as too powerful and as biased against settler movement. Israel's ultra-religious committee and the Mizrahi population, Jewish people of Middle Eastern origin in particular, many on the right Israel, have never forgiven the court for decision related to Israel's unilateral withdrawal from Gaza Strip in 2005. On 27 March, Israeli President Isaac Herzog called on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to immediately halt the legislative process. His Histadrat Labour Federation chair Aaron Bar David announced a general nationwide strike, followed by labor unions and major corporations announcing their participation in strike. Protest leaders from high-tech industry announced a complete shutdown of country's tech industry. The leader of Israel Airports Trade Union directed airport workers to shut down the Ben Gurion Airport. Israel Doctor Union announced immediate freeze on healthcare system. Mass protests continued through Israel later that day, with largest taking place in front of Knesset. Over 1,000 protesters have participated in protests, demanding a complete stop of legislation. In response of increased pressure, Netanyahu agreed to delay judicial legislation for a month. However, protesters stated that they would continue demonstrating until the legislation is shelved entirely. In agreement with National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, who threatened to resign if the legislation were to be halted, Netanyahu promised to promote foundation of National Guard, which has to be headed by Ben-Gvir. Following Prime Minister Netanyahu's announcement on 27 March of a pause in the judicial legislation, a counter-protest started making their own protests with tens of thousands protesting in favor of change. Due to protest, Israeli embassies all over the world has been shut down. Now let's talk about the reasons which led to this protest. First reason, image of Benjamin Netanyahu. In international committee, Benjamin Netanyahu is considered a strong leader, strong decision maker, and a macho man. But in Israel, He has been charged with fraud, breach of trust, and bribery. In 2020, he was convicted. Following up of 23rd April 2023, the trial is ongoing. Second reason for protest is Israel has no written constitution. Various attempts to draft the formal document since 1948 have fallen short of mark, and instead of Israel has involved a system of basic laws and rights which enjoy semi-constitutional status. These two reasons are major reasons for protest in Israel. And as of 28th April 2023, the protesters are still protesting and protest is still going on.